opportunity to share thoughts with very responsible and respected gentlemen and women like this, outstanding ladies with lots of achievements. Of course, if it was about what quality of credential in the art of cultural promotion I have, I'm not too sure I would have been enough. I would have been the right person to be here with 4 million here, Dr. Crane and Atogho, of course. But I think that the little things we do sometimes, someone did do. So thank you very much. I know that introduction was very warm and also motivating for me. Welcome everybody. Martina, you need to be part of this family, Martina. I'm suspecting you. So tell friends to welcome. Last year we did not have this luxury because I was in Ethiopia. Last year's event, but trust me, I'm really happy to be here. So not like Bob said, you're the only person who was not spoken here since morning. So I'm going to allow you to take off on that very beautiful note. We're now talking about documentation. I mean, yes. You listen to Mam, you listen to Armstrong speak about the ancestry, the history, and everything around the Atogho. First, I wanted to lay the foundation of this conversation. Who has also spoken, she'll share her thoughts. But I think after listening to them, you can curate all of what they've said and share a thought on what you think about the documentation of this beautiful God-given fabric that we all celebrate today. In every stitch, you see wisdom, you see creativity, you see just everything you can imagine. But we're not there yet. How do we move?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I would like to seize this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to Akumbu, who has been very active over the last few years as a cultural entrepreneur and a cultural promoter in the Northwest region. I really admire this young man and his enthusiasm and zeal to put the Bamenda man at the forefront. And it is an honor and privilege for me to be here. I really, I am happy for having been invited. And I have learned a lot. I have learned a lot since the beginning of this program. I've learned a lot more than I think I'll be able to give back. So I'll be living here guilty. I've taken more than I can give. So thank you very much, Akumbu. Thank you for being you, and thank you for what you do. So I'll just start by some basic definitions, maybe in a guise to perhaps see if we can establish a common understanding about some key concepts about the discussion that we're having today, which is centered around documentation and preservation of the Atogho. First of all, my understanding of documentation, which to me is important. It's important all of us understand what documentation means, because if we need to have a conversation, we need to have a common ground of what documentation is. The word documentation simply means writing down for posterity to be able to see. When somebody dies, he leaves a will. Some write their family histories for younger people to come and understand where they're coming from. You understand? And the word documentation stems from paper. We used to talk about documents, that is paper. But nowadays, documentation has gone beyond paperwork to include other forms of documenting, especially video, music, multimedia, and so on and so forth. So I will invite the fellow panelists to enlarge their understanding of documentation to include all these systems. That's the first thing. So now, to give a few suggestions, my own ideas, so that to enrich the debate, I would love to.
Would you mind to? I don't know whether you're making suggestions on how to properly document it.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Right, let's see. Okay. Because we'll have that later on. So.
Yeah. So. Well, I have prepared some ideas in my mind about about how we can properly document, the importance of documenting, and the different types of documentation formats and their effectiveness that are available for us at almost no cost. Because we also have to do what is available for us, what is available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dom. Just so I wanted give a minute each to Madam Deborah and Armstrong. Where are we in terms of documentation? Before we come to the classical, what it should be.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you'll be reading the cultural terrain, the space. I mean, two of you in terms of diplomacy, in terms of what actually is. I wanted just a minute each for two of you to establish what do we have now as in terms of documentation.
State of affairs.
All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, moderator, and to everyone. So I'm happy to be here with you. What's the state of documentation? Okay, I'm first of all going to speak from the basic background where I came from as a documentarist and a records manager. Okay, I realized that in our African communities, we have much more of the oral. That's where our documentation is found.
Yeah.
So that's the actual state of our communities right now. It's true that some communities of the Northwest region have something that they have on paper with regards to, let's say, the customs and the traditions of their land. But then it's very limited. And daily, the materials are getting faded. And we no longer find them. Mr. Armstrong was talking earlier on of the loop, where we have the fingerprints of the giants, and where we are thinking that it's good to document this thing, because what the people have is that oral tradition. They say a lot about it, but nobody has ever taken time to write something and keep something that generations should benefit from. I think that has always been the challenge of our communities. We have a lot, but have kept a lot and never exposed any of it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate. Yes, also.
To me, I would say it's zero.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no proper documentation so far, and it's important for it to be documented because posterity needs to have a source that they can tap into, that they can go to learn more about Atogho and the culture as a whole. So to me, so far, it's zero. It's zero. I'm not saying nothing has been done so far, but what's been done is not enough. If you want to consider the fact that Atogho is an ancient thing, and then we have just this little, to me, it's zero. Yeah.
All right. So, Madam Vuvu and your father, did all of this non-existing documentation inspire your concept of this? Or it was just another fashion creation that you talk about? Another maybe some minimal revenue generation exercise that you thought about for the people? I want Vuvu to make a comment about the inspiration behind this, therefore, before we go to classical documentation. Madam Vuvu, what inspired this? Do you think we had an urgent need to document something around the Atogho for its preservation?
Well, actually, in my mind, I really wasn't thinking about documents.
Okay.
Yes, I think that I was in my mind. I was thinking that we have a treasure in our hands and we haven't explored it properly. So I think that I was looking for an avenue where we could explore it as well as learn about it and as well as conserve it and promote it. Yes.
So, Dr. Akwen, by the academia now, let us know what it means.
Dr. Alassamo.
Oh, sorry, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Alassamo, thank you very much. I remember we shared the panel at the Black Swagger event.
Yes.
I actually leave that place with both of the names, and I left the place the wrong name.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Dr. Alassamo. So, when the academia, let's now learn from you. What does it take to document the Atogho? As we speak, neither do we have multimedia, neither do we have it written, neither do we have it in audio. In fact, from Armstrong and Miss Deborah, nothing is existing. Where do we move from here? What do we have to do?
Thank you very much. I think that to start with, we need to be very careful and draw a very, not be too stiff, to draw a very clean line between conservation and modernity. We need to embrace modernity and know that we cannot do without it. So it's either we look for very, very efficient ways to embrace modernity and use modernity to project ourselves and conserve our culture, or we get left behind. We cannot run away from modernity. We have to take modernity and make good use of it. So that's the first thing that I want to say. Secondly, I want to stress on the importance of documenting before I go to the different means available for us. It is important to document because we are increasingly living in urban spaces. Even our villages are no longer villages. You go to the village at midnight, you still have people coming from nightclubs in the village. We never knew about nightclubs. There is globalization, where we live in spaces where lots of cultures coexist and cross-pollinate each other. When cultures cross-pollinate, what happens is something that is in between, like mulatto. So most of us are cultural mulattoes because of mulatto is métis. Yeah. So most of us are cultural mulattoes because we have elements of different cultures in us due to globalization through TV, through film, through the different media. Now, culture at the international space is like osmosis. The stronger solution draws the weaker one. Are we the weaker solution or the stronger solution? The question comes back to us. We are the ones to make ourselves the stronger solution, not to be engulfed by the weaker solution. And right now, we seem to be the weaker solution because the Western world has had a way to document, ventilate, and propagate their culture. So much so that our own children living in our own houses are more exposed to the Western world than the very environment where they live, and it is due to lack of documentation. So documentation is a way, like Armstrong said, to put our cultural values in a retrieval system that can be consulted and studied by our progenitors, our children and great-grandchildren, to know, where am I coming from? How do we dress? What are our values? The mental structure, the material and immaterial culture. It has to be documented because that is the only way in which we can make sure that our culture can survive. Because a culture is the way of life of a people. And once there are no people practicing a culture, then the culture does not exist because culture lives in us. Most of us here, most of our children don't know our culture. So what will your children who don't know your culture tell their own children? So your children depend on what they see on TV, through African Magic, through Hollywood films, through YouTube, through Facebook. So they grow up as culturally lost. It's like a child who is standing at hospital roundabout. There's road going to Ntarekun, there's road going to Aziri, there's road going to T Junction, another one going to food market. He does not know where he has to go because we have refused to show them the way by documenting our culture and putting it at the international space so that they can see, so that it can be influential. So it is important for us to document our culture. Now, what are the different ways in which we can document our culture? First, it comes back to policymakers. Sure thing and good thing that officials of the Ministry of Arts and Culture are here. We have to limit the way cultural and creative products from different cultural spheres flood our spaces. I'm giving this to the policymakers, especially from the Ministry of Arts and Culture.
If we were to take a recommendation down,
yes, we have to limit the way that cultural products flood our space. Because our children grow up, they have Nigerian slangs. I remember I went to a traditional wedding in my village. This one paid me. I went to a traditional wedding in my village, but they organized it Igbo style. Why? Because both the bride and the groom were born in Douala. And they have been watching Nigerian films, and the pride and the joy that comes to them is doing it the way they have been seeing it, because they had no alternative. They've never seen a traditional wedding from Kong before.
And no windows.
So they have no idea. So I was the uncle of the bride. So I was trying to bring everything back to normal. But my niece was saying that I'm trying to spoil her day. Can you imagine? Because our cultural spaces and the airways have been flooded by foreign cultural elements in form of documentation. When I come to forms of documentation, I'll buttress on this. But the forms of documented culture that exist in our spaces are not ours. So we have become the weaker solution that has been drawn by the stronger solution. So policymakers, if you go to China, they don't have this problem. They have even created their own Google. You don't use Google in China. They have their own search engine. And they have made sure that Western ideologies, articles, books, everything, you cannot access from China. And their own Google has China ecosystem. So that even Chinese who are in China, even if you don't have you are in Beijing, but you don't have the opportunity to go to your village, even if you search on Google, what you see will be China. So there's no possibility of you living in China and having Western mentality. It's not possible. Because of these policy strategies. Then, when we block this out, for example, we don't have to leave a vacuum. Because most of us live in urban spaces where our children don't even follow us to contributing. They don't even go to the village. There are people living downtown here from Kumbo who have never been to Kumbo before. So when we block out this airspace, we need to fill it with our own. Let's start with websites. Simple. When you go on Google and Google a certain kind of dress, it pops up, but it doesn't come from empty space. It comes up from somebody's website. Yeah. So if my sister here, Vomsi, has a very extensive website that has her designs from 10 years ago with brands and names and explanations on certain things, that is a very rich archival system where our children can resort to.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So, Doc, thank you very much. I mean, we're going to let us have this last part of the conversation. What to do way forward in the last part of our conversation. But I want to do a quick round of 30 seconds or a minute each for every one of us to share. Let us enjoy the blame game. Now, I want us to enjoy the blame game. Who failed to do it? Okay? Who failed? Is it us in the media who failed? Did the media fraternity fail to tell our story? Is it those who are into the industry who did not do it? Is it the academia? Those of us who are into the fields that relate to culture and the rest that fail to do proper academic studies and, on the need for us to preserve this very important aspect of our culture. Just a minute each. I'll start from Ms. Deborah till whoever here. Yes?
Okay, who fails?
We're doing the blame game now, yes. If it's you, please say that me.
Oh, we failed to do it.
All right, go ahead.
We failed to do it. The administration failed to do it. The promoters failed to do it. The stakeholders and everyone in the chain failed on their own part. Why do I say so? Doctor was talking about limiting the ways that things flooding. It's as though the administration is choked up with the element of globalization. And more we find it hard to control certain things in our own country. He was talking about China. China will not be considered a democratic nation.
Democracy.
So they will handle it, let me just say it, with iron hands and put in place certain things. When the Minister of Telecommunications came out and talked about people not using the I've forgotten about the internet from Elon Musk.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
starting.
where nothing can be controlled. People will be thinking, no, they want to control power in the nation and all that. But there are elements like this that cannot be controlled at that level. So we see that with the flood of the internet and the facilities that anyone can get at that level is difficult. It's really difficult to manage it, especially in Cameroon. And so that's why I say that the administration is somehow choked to manage all of these things. So we failed. I would say we failed.
Okay. Well, just to say that maybe it's a limitation to our setup, but know that the internet infrastructure is one that you can allow exactly what internet access your citizens have.
Yes, you can control.
So it is very important.
Very
I think
important.
It is going to be a technical thing for our government services to have that conversation and see how far it can go.
Yeah.
But appropriate communication will not require that if you're doing something to preserve a cultural aspect that's already been overwhelmed, like our culture, you can do a presser or to do big announcements. What you do is that you handle it from the internet infrastructure itself and sell to manage. I think that's what China is doing, and that was the example Dr. was giving. Let me hear from Armstrong, please. Armstrong, don't get very annoyed at this level.
Calm down.
I know how.
It's okay.
Yeah, please. You have the time. Let's do the big game here. Who failed?
We failed our ancestors, or we failed ourselves. When I said documentation is at zero, it's not as if efforts had not been made. There has been a grand plan that was well on the way, and it was destroyed. I grew up as a kid in the 80s, going to the Bamenda Cultural Center. It had a concert hall, a performing arts space, a museum, a library, an outdoor garden where they were doing festivals like this. They were doing bazaars, they were doing festivals, they were doing concerts. That space was the bedrock for documentation of Togo and every other cultural product from this part of the world. So till up to this day, I can't understand how the people allowed that space to be dismantled. And it's as if to bring it back, it is so difficult. So we are at point zero, but something can be done. This platform is already a way forward. So we just need to dream up a better future and harness the right energy to restore it, and then we start building. The Bamenda Cultural Center, to me, was the foundation for our cultural documentation in terms of heritage. The people that put it together didn't make a mistake. And one thing we should understand is this thing they call AI. It's not a new thing, it's so ancient. AI to me means ancestral intelligence. You get? And that's the kind of mindset that our forefathers had when they put together that space, that cultural center. It had so much. It had Atogho displayed in the museum space, such that anyone who is doing Atogho today, when you go even to what your great-grandparents or your grandparents, grandparents, great-grandparents had as Atogho, you will see the difference. It's not anyone that has seen real Atogho. It's not all of this. It's not. I wore Atogho as a kid. I was privileged. It was given to me by my grandfather. I don't know if he bought it or someone gifted it to him, but I know the difference. I have another Atogho that was given to me by my maternal grandfather that was made in 1923. So I know the difference. So Atogho, our culture had once upon a time been documented, even though it was not what it could have been today if that process wasn't interrupted. Because today we are talking about digital technology, in its various dimensions and all of that. But that was a great effort. That was the foundation. So what we need now to do, oh sorry, it's not time for way forward.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get there soon.
Good, we'll get there soon. So the fact is, we are at point zero.
Yeah.
And it's a big problem, it's a big challenge. And no one is going to do it for us. We are the ones to do it. Yes.
From your presentation, and even now I still feel very proud. Reminding me that we failed our ancestors.
Of course. Of course.
To imagine that we failed our our great grandfather is a terrible feeling to have. Madam, so
Blame game.
so he said that before, he just repeated it again. That
blame.
it's a terrible feeling to have. Yes, ma'am. Now you're asking the question who failed, but I also want you to start adding the elements. Do you think that my father, that's a Northwest Fashion Designers Association, do you think they can contribute to the documentation of Atogho? Because I can't limit the documentation to you people, but I must show gratitude for the fact that you have given the platform for takeoff.
Yeah.
But we cannot limit it to you. So let's know, do you think somebody fails? Do you think my father can contribute? Let's hear from you.
Well, I think I would say the opposite of what Armstrong said.
All right.
I think that our forefathers failed us.
This was the time. She did.
Be careful.
Passed down from one generation
To the another.
And if you have a vision of what you want, of how your society should look like, that is what you should pass down from one generation to the other. So I'm thinking that there's no way that I could have been trying to preserve it without even seeing my parents trying to preserve it. You know, I'm saying this because I come from a family where it might sound funny, but none of us speaks our dialect because to us. Like my dad spoke English.
Very good English at that.
He's a language teacher. So he spoke English for all my 40 years and never miss. So at that, what do I do with the dialect? I'm lost in the middle of it. When people are talking, I'm lost. I just pick gestures up and down and you know that okay, this is happening. But there's nothing that I actually know about my own dialect. So that's why I would say I will go with the opposite, that our ancestors failed us because if they intentionally passed it on from one generation to another without bleeding, I think that we would not have been here today. So on the second question, yes, of course, your father can actually propel this in all aspects. I think that Nofada is a group of fashion designers from the delegates to us.
Yeah.
And so it is a platform where we can have conversations, and we are actually happy that we are working hand to hand with the delegation of arts and culture. So I think that it is a platform where and they have actually been supporting us from inception. So that alone has actually made us to be here for the second edition, because without that, honestly, I can tell you that it could not have been possible. So we are thankful for that. So it is a platform where we can have conversations like this. And I also want to say that we are fashion designers. So these conversations, in as much as certain aspects can be intellectual, too high, academic, kind of, I think that we are fashion designers and we should try to simplify it in a way that when each person goes back home, there is one little step that they can take from now that can actually help them.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I also believe that documentation will have to do with interviews and other things. You can do interviews in the mother tongue, you can do them in in meeting, and so everybody can participate. It's very important for us to have that in mind.
Yeah.
I want to just identify something Armstrong said a while ago about the cultural sector, and to say we've had this. I mean, every time I meet with Atogho and the rest of the people who are discussing the culture in the Northwest, this issue of the cultural sector comes up, and it becomes a focal point. And I do not know how the advocacy can go about But every time the temptation is always for me to write an article from the angle of the need for a cultural center. And at the end, that does it. That does it. I do not know how we can go. Dear friends, we're going to be taking a way forward. Doc will allow me to come to you last. Why? Because it is what you share, your thoughts will share here, I take them to the scientific.
Yeah.
So I do not want to subject them to an argument. Yes, because scientific in the sense that, I mean, this is what is accepted as universal knowledge.
Yeah.
And so if this is how we're supposed to document, I will live from here with the knowledge that this is how we're going to be moving from now, moving forward towards documentation.
Yeah.
So Armstrong, we're going to do it quickly now. We'll just start taking the way forward. The way forward. These are the problems we identified. This is where we are. How do we move from now forward? Yes, please.
All right. If you are talking documentation,
Yes.
we should look at various stakeholders that are relevantly involved or that should be involved. We look at the mass population, look at the media, we look at government, we look at the traditional authorities, we look at the academia. And I end up with the academia because for things like this to be documented, they have to change their methodology.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's so Eurocentric.
Yeah.
It's not indigenous in any way. You know, so she talked about the fact that most of their members are just designers, blah, blah, blah. No. This thing is not about your academic degree, because that, to me, is a big problem. I mentioned it when I was doing my presentation, because academic degree, when you are someone with a big ego, it becomes a problem, because you refuse yourself the opportunity to learn, and you fail to understand that you can learn from your grandma, from your grandfather who has never been to any four walls of any classroom. You can learn from the youngest child, you know, because to me, there's a difference between knowledge and education. There are two things. So when we talk about documentation and I say the academia has a big role to play, what I'm saying is that if they have to document culture, they have to change the method that it needs to be done. Because you cannot be following the blueprint that has been laid down by your ancestors, by your oppressors. You get, by your oppressors, and then you think you're doing justice to yourself. No. You are rather entangling yourself further with the shackles that they left behind when they took off, you know, in the name of independence, you know, granting us independence. Because now we are talking about imperialism and neocolonialism, you know. So
I could just be worried about your choice of the word oppressor. Go ahead.
Yes, no, it's a fact. Right. Yeah, I mean, I cannot beat about the bush, you know, because my oppressor can never be someone that looks like me. You know, he can never. I know my oppressors, and my oppressor can never write a book that can empower me. It's not possible. It means I'm very stupid. I can't be reading a book written by someone that enslaved me, and I think that that book is meant to empower me. It means I don't really know what I'm doing. You know, so our academic system needs to be changed. It needs to be indigenous. You know, we need to put together content, academic content that reflect our local realities. In fact, we need to redefine everything for ourselves. What civilization means, what culture actually means. You know, so we should be able to understand that there is culture and there are cultural trends, and we know the difference. You know, and then we know the one that has strength, and then we know where we have to draw our strength. So in terms of documentation, the media, let me ask a question. How come one of the prominent so-called Anglophone newspapers like Guardian Post is not here? They are supposed to come here, do a deep dive into this event, so that when they publish, you'll be able to read a good review about Atogho Fashion Festival. You'll be able to read a good analysis of Atogho Fashion Festival. That's documentation. And when the public reads it, it takes them to another dimension where they start having conversations and arguments That's how the documentation is expanded. Because like I said, it includes the mass population, the media, the academia, the cultural stakeholders, and the traditional authorities. So it is from those angles that we can document. And the documentation is very important if we have to have Atogho as a cultural heritage. Right. Because you can't have heritage without proper documentation. You cannot protect it or promote it without proper documentation.
All right. Fantastic, Armstrong. Thank you very much. And just to say that if we have less than 5 media organizations here, I think it's about the interest they take on cultural matters. The update we did about today's event was shared on the biggest journalism platform, both in Anglophone and French Cameroon, put together. It was shared on our local media channels and all of that. So it's a choice. And I think we need to look for a way to harness media's interest, on our cultural matters. And I think we'll be having this conversation. We need to continue it from there moving forward. Yeah. Let's hear from Ms. Deborah.
Okay, what's the way forward? What should be done? At the level of culture in the region, we think and we see that engaging communities, engaging our grassroots to understanding what they have and seeing the importance of what they have is key to us. And so for 2 years now, we've been getting into some communities where we can to help them know what they have, help them know how they can protect it. We had some communities that came to us and said because of the crisis, some of their cultural sources were being stolen, and they were very precious to some of these policies. And they sought our own consent on how to protect the ones that they still have in their communities. And so we help these communities. We go to different villages, engaging young people to begin to see what they have, learn what they have, and know what they have. Last year, we engaged 200 youths in the Baku community for heritage protection, their heritage, knowing what is man and being able to grasp it and understand it. And so we are going into other communities. We've been to Momo, deep down to Buneku, where we educate communities like that also with regards to what we're talking here, protecting our heritage. So we see that the easiest way that we can go is first of all empowering our communities and helping them understand what they have.
All right. Thank you very much. Great insights there. So, Dr. Yu, it will be you now. So
okay.
we will have a lot of time to talk from now to tomorrow. So, Doctor is going to be you now. Let us now establish how this happened. These are important notes for everybody. You find yourself in other circles where you need documentation for posterity, so you can take notes if you want. Please talk about you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this question is very deep, and I will try my best to be concise, because this is something I could write a book of about 200 pages on, because there's just so much to talk about, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. First, it's difficult to talk about what should work without talking about what has not worked. You need to see where you slipped before you can know why you slipped there and why you should not slip again. First of all, I still come back to the government. Yeah, if we have to do any recommendations from this workshop, the first one should be to the government. Why do I say so? Because the government needs a certain kind of consciousness, a reawakening as to the true potentials of culture. Culture has been referred to as soft power, but even that term, soft power, was it is coined by Westerners to fool us because it is not soft. Soft power is actually stronger and more effective than hard power, which is the normal international diplomacy. Let me bring an analogy. If you have a bottle of honey here, well-designed bottle of honey with honey inside, what is more important? Is it the bottle or the honey? If we are fighting, you say one person should take the honey and one person should take the bottle. What will you want to take? The honey. Soft power is like the honey. Hard power is like the bottle. And our national policies were designed and handed down to us by colonial masters. That's where I agree with him. And they designed them in such a way that we will not be able to develop confidence in our own selves, in our own beliefs, in our own systems, in our own culture. That is why at independence, most of our ministers felt that our cultures were inferior. When they want to enjoy themselves, they go to France. When they want to treat themselves, even up to date, people still go to France to treat themselves. What is trendy is what is coming from abroad, you know. So, but if you look at Western embassies, you cannot see American embassy without an American cultural center, even in Afghanistan. But how many African countries have cultural centers around the world? Their embassies have 3, 4, 5 people. You go get your visa, no other services. Because our countries, it's not just about Cameroon. African countries do not understand the importance of soft power. And soft power starts from within the country, before out of the country. I talked about the stronger solution, being the stronger solution, which means that we need to be proud of our culture and then try to export it. When you are proud of your culture and you are a proud person, you will never allow someone's culture to overrun you. And you'll always be trying to impose your culture on the other person instead of the other way around. That is soft power. If I want to steal his son, I will not be stupid to go and kidnap him if he's my neighbor. I just have to make the son love my ways, love the way I talk, love the way I behave, love my ideologies, and abide to them. Very soon, his son's body will be in his house, but his son's mind is in my house. You understand? These are the basic fundamentals that we need to understand at the level of the state. Now, some of you will come and say, this man is a subversive. No, I am not a subversive element. I'm not talking against the government. I am an academic and I'm talking out of research. Go to the classification of ministries in this country. There are primary necessity ministries with budgets of over 300 billion. There are economic ministries that are in the middle where they provide jobs. And then there are what we call economic and social ministries. Ministry of Art and Culture budget is 4 billion. Compare it to basic education, which is 365 billion. And that already gives you the idea at the helm of the state as to what culture is. According to them, culture and Aseweti, president, they go someplace, they can dance. Traditional dance come. If there's a public event, they can dance. Blah, blah, blah. They don't conceptualize culture from the strength that it has as a vector of conquering the world and of making the citizens proud of themselves and living in a particular way and having a particular national identity. Why do I insist on this? I'm saying this because some of you will say, no, at our level, we can do our own stuff. Yeah. But if at the helm of the state is not aware to create that enabling environment, he talked about something that was dismantled. You can create something here to promote culture. You have 6 or 7 different types of taxes. Why are those taxes coming? Because at the helm of the state, it is not understood that that is soft power. It is not understood that those things are supposed to be tax exempted. They are even supposed to flock people to participate in activities within that vicinity. You understand? Now, I went to Uganda some 3 months ago. I went to Uganda National Museum, my brother. It was a whole village. Why was it a village? Because first of all, understand, you go to a fashion and design section. All the different regions of Uganda have dummies wearing different regalia with a big board with a whole literature around it. You understand? So there are about 6 to 7 different regions of Uganda with different kinds of dressing. Then you have all that literature. You know, when you get there, by the time you go through just the fashion and design section, you'll have learned a lot about what this dress means, where it comes from, what kind of social class wears it. You go to architecture, housing, the different shapes and sizes of houses. Who are the kind of people that build this kind of houses? Everything. Now, if the government of Cameroon understood this thing, you go to National Museum in Yaoundé, it will not be what you see it. Because it's just something you do to fulfill righteousness. Now, you come to regional level. If we have a regional museum that encompasses all the different cultural aspects of the Northwest region, you enter, it is like a whole neighborhood where you go, the Com area, the Bansok area, the Babanki, the Bafut. There was supposed to be a talk here on the different signs on the Atogho. The signs on the Atogho differ from one community in the Northwest to the other. The museum is supposed to encompass all that knowledge. If I want to know, in my place, if you see somebody wearing an Atogho with lizard on it, drawn on it, that person belongs to the native doctors and the juju heads. If you see somebody, when you see somebody wearing something with crabs, it means something else. If you see somebody wearing something with gongs on it, it means something else.
All right. So thank you very much. I mean, I like the way I understand you stay on that. We can stay on the problem for a very long time.
Yeah.
We are on the how. How do we document? Let everyone learn how do we document. I mean, it's important.
Yes.
We also take off from there so that we have less than 10 more minutes to go. I think we have about 7 or so.
Yeah.
That's the time I was given yesterday. No, you are in charge. You are in charge.
Okay, good.
You're just round.
First, if you are documenting, I go with multimedia, which is what is topical nowadays. Let's start with websites, like I mentioned. All of those who are in charge, who are designers, try to have a comprehensive website that is accessible from all over the world. So that, and then when you are doing your names, and always put Cameroon on it. And then perhaps a sub-name of Bafut or whatever, so that wherever, if you just type Bafut, amongst the drop-down menu that comes up, you will have your designs coming up. You understand? Then now, you also have films. You want to understand that films have been the biggest vector of culture all over the world, both internally within countries and from inter-country. Where an American film goes, an American product follows. All of us like gin because of Western. They use gin to promote, they use Western films, the cowboy films, to promote the gin trouser. Hollywood. And even Chinese today are wearing gin. Even those who hate America are wearing gin. They have even forgotten that gin originated from China. Because gin was associated with power, bravery, strength through films. The president of the MPAA in America, American Motion Pictures Association, is appointed by the government, it's not voted. And the government appoints because they know the power of the American film industry. And the American film industry has promoted American culture and American lies. Like America does not negotiate with territories. Where one America is, they can never abandon, they can kill a whole nation to recuperate one America. Those are all lies. But they have used, so they have created an image in us that Americans, which is a lie. They abandon their citizens, but they have made films to make us know that no, once you are an American, you can never be abandoned anywhere, and that's why all of us are rushing to America. You understand? So film is, I am talking now like the president of the Secretary General of the Cameroon film industry for over 10 to 12 years now. So understand, those are some of the things that we try to do. If you are doing a film, know that part of your characterization is dressing, Atogho, sign systems, objects. What do they mean? Make sure that you put the meaning in proper context each time you are doing a film, so that the right understanding goes through, so that we understand that right. You understand? Then you have music. You can never underestimate the role that music videos play in documenting our culture. We do a lot of beautiful music, some of them folkloric in nature. How is the representation of our culture in all these folkloric videos? There are YouTube channels, there are Facebook pages. So there is supposed to be a lot of sensitization. Now, to end, some of us must have realized that palaces are beginning to have museums. I visited the Museum of Mendankwe, not far from here. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was quite elaborate, but more could be done. So imagine that every single and imagine that in Cameroon's cultural policy, the Ministry of Arts and Culture had this prime place with this big budget where they can actually fund every fandom to be able to open a museum large enough to document their material and immaterial culture in a way that it will boost tourism. Yes, that is economic power, but the real strength of that museum will be soft power, making people from that village to understand what the culture is. Once you leave Yaoundé Douala and get to the village, pass by the museum, go around, read the literature around the objects, the artifacts, and everything. So, like I said, there is just so much that can be said as to the way forward. But let me end here for now. If I have time, I'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. So, an in-depth presentation, and much of profound gratitude. Dear friends, tomorrow and the day following, you're going to see me around, but I'm going to be around together with the very intelligent and dynamic YG Sylvia. I want her to coordinate the last part of this panel discussion, which is going to involve all of you.
Yeah.
I can't play my ask them all the questions, so we're going to give her 10 minutes so that she can coordinate this part of the conversation. If you have questions for anybody here, please proceed to ask, so that if I left anything out, please ask in the language of your choice. I mean, someone I would have loved to moderate this in language, but unfortunately. Because all of us don't come from top, I had to do it in English. So, Tilly will come and moderate this last part together with the panelists on your thoughts about their conversation, then we'll end there. Tilly, please, over to you.